Let's bring on a guest to talk more about it, and somebody who is very familiar. If you have listened to our show or listened to it back when it was on the old radio days,
Yeah.
because we would bring him on quite a bit to talk about high school basketball, and he still knows quite a bit about high school basketball, and that is my cousin, a high school basketball analyst, we'll call him, Dan Vance, joining the show. Dan, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. We're excited to have you back on.
Yeah, man, it's been too long. I'm glad to be back with you guys.
Yeah, yeah, we're glad to have you on. Which game from yesterday do you want to talk about? We had three of them. Which one kind of
Yeah.
stands out to you the most?
Well, I mean, I think the one that stands out the most is going to be Belmont
Yeah,
because they captured that state title. A really fun game and great for. I know you guys were just talking about Coach Andy Heim and what he did for that program, and I got a chance to cover them basically through his entire time. With the new Sentinel and then outside the huddle until a couple of years ago. He's just a great guy and has built a great program. And you mentioned it, 0-21 in his second year with them, and for him to be able to build them up to a state championship program, you know, he got some help early on by having Grace Hunter, who was just a fantastic player, a Division One talent. But that was just kind of the spark. Grace was the spark, and he had to build from there and keep girls engaged and wanted to be part of that program. And just a tremendous job for him in the long term. And I think the state title is just icing on the cake for that.
Yeah, so I want to switch gears a little bit. The team that I want to ask you about, because I would imagine you know a little bit more about this program than I do. I want to talk about Fremont. Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to be completely transparent, not even on my radar like 3 weeks ago. To look at, if you're talking state championship run, Fremont was not on my radar. And completely shocked not only myself, but the entire area with this deep run. They didn't win the state championship, but we're talking about a program that's going to be right back at it next year. What can you tell us from your perspective about the Fremont program?
Yeah, a really great program. I got a chance to see them in person. When they played up at Garrett, where I coach now, during the NECC tournament, they played in our gym. Grace Sharlock is one of the toughest guards that I've seen in the last decade in the area. A little bit undersized, but she's so tenacious in how she plays the game. And obviously, I think that with Fremont, it's a situation where you have such a small, tight knit community. Their coach came from that program. She was a stellar player in that program. And so I think that there's just, such a pride in what they do. Grace is such a great player. Maya Turner is another underrated girl in that junior class. They've built up. But like you said, DC, kind of a surprise, I think, in a state finals type situation, as good as they were sharing the NECC title. I think they're a year early than I think that we thought that maybe Sharlock and Turner could get them there next year. But to get there this year, get that experience, and I think that it will show if they're able to get back next year what that experience means, because that's what Borden had. Borden was the defending state champions. Their length helped them, but I think Borden's experience was a big help in that title game yesterday too.
Yeah, and you've seen and covered multiple teams that have maybe been a year too early with a loaded junior class, and the one example that always comes to mind is the Central Noble girls that won it, and then they had that huge junior class, and then they brought everybody back essentially for another run. They didn't make it as far. I believe they still made it to semi-state, but just how important how important is this run going to be for a team like Fremont going into next year, and should they be viewed as a favorite, obviously a favorite to compete in the NECC, but a favorite amongst teams to make it back down to Indianapolis?
I think they're definitely a favorite. The run is huge. I think the run makes it's going to make everything better for them next year than even playing in Gamebridge. The bright lights is a big experience, the big court, but the run to get there, the win over Marquette Catholic, upsetting the number one team in the state in Class 1A, I think is more important. They were able to keep together those tough games. Getting through a semi-state Saturday, I think, is just as big for experience as playing in the state finals. So I think it's a massive opportunity for them to grow off of. And I think that Coach Shay Thomas is definitely going to preach that going forward. She's the type of coach that will talk about how the experience builds them more than the result.
So let's talk Norwell. So we had Vanessa Rossworm on the show last week. Was very optimistic going into the state championship, and we're talking about a player. And I want to kind of bring you in on this discussion as well, because we see it all over the timeline on X. Everybody's talking about Miss Indiana basketball and why her name isn't being discussed. So I asked her straight up last week, look, I know you see it. So what's your perspective on it? And she obviously replied very humble and was just like, that's not what I play for. That stuff, it's cool to be even recognized with those, that talented group of girls, but that's not what she plays for. So we can say it. So I'm gonna ask you, Dan, Miss Indiana basketball, do we need to be having those discussions with Ross Warren?
We should be having those discussions with Vanessa Rossworm, and I think that she should have always been on the cusp of those conversations coming out of last year. But the year she's put together, the run for Norwell, eliminating Homestead, getting to the state finals for a third straight year, it should definitely enhance it. I know there were a lot of conversations going into yesterday, her versus Grayson Gilliard, and that kind of competition. Obviously, Gilliard, I think, should be in the conversation too. Subjectively, no dog in the fight, not covering any team officially anymore. I think Vanessa Rossworm outplayed her in that game yesterday, and I think that she should be at the forefront of that conversation, and probably not the only girl in our area. I think that Jocelyn Bricker from Warsaw should be in that conversation too.
With Coach Eric Thornton, and he's been at it for a while. He's got win number 500. I don't want to, I'm not going to speak on his behalf, but how much longer do you think he has? Because he's built up this program that has just been very consistent over his time, and obviously getting to 500 wins, 3 straight runs to the state final. How much longer do you think he coaches down there at Norwell?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I think that Coach Thornton has some years still left in him. I think that he wants to continue to see the fruits of this program. Their JV team lost 1 game. Their freshman team didn't lose any games. And so even though they're going to graduate quite a bit, they're going to reload again. And so I'd love to see Coach stay for a long time. I think that what he's done with that program, I think that we could be seeing a little sample of that with Coach Heim, who's obviously been at Bellmont less, but has built that program up, and the rivalry they have, a friendly rivalry with them as coaches. I think that Eric Thornton's laying the blueprint on how to build a program up the right way and how to make it a champion. I think we see Eric Thornton. I'm gonna conservatively give him 5 more years, but I'd like to see him for another 10.
Yeah.
So out of these teams that reached the state championship last year, I'm not. We can't bet on high school sports, so this is just hypothetical. This is just a hypothetical. But if we could put a little something on it, Dan, and you have to today, you have to right now, I'll put you on the spot. You got one team that you can pick to reach the state final and win next season. Who do you pick?
I pick Norwell.
Really?
And then they lose the most, but man, what they do there is, and Bryce, you've covered Norwell teams and games over the years. Like, everybody knows what Norwell is going to do for the most part. Their zone defenses, their weave, dribble, drive offense. It doesn't change a lot, but it's so refined. It's so hard to beat. And what they do, Coach Thornton and his whole staff, let's give them all credit for what they do, building the younger girls up, their youth program. They don't miss a beat. They went to the state finals 2 years ago, lost, missed a shot at the buzzer, similar to this year, and graduated the best player in program history. And then they just turned around and found a new best player in program history and went right back there 2 more years. I think that Norwell's built for the longevity. They've shown this year that they can battle in 4A, not just with the postseason run, but what they did during the regular season as well. I like Bellmont, obviously, in 3A with how much they bring back, but that Norwell program is, it has to be considered one of the best programs in the state at this point.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you said, remember covered games at the Castle, and it's an incredible environment. First of all, to cover a game, just because, just of how many people show up, even for a girls' game, because even a handful of years ago when you're covering girls' basketball, you go out to a gym and it might not be so full for a girls' basketball game, but that place is packed. Those fans are engaged, even on the girls' side, and it equals the boys' side. So definitely that program has been very consistent. Like you said, a team to look at and how to build a system. And I didn't even know that that they were undefeated at the freshman level and only 1 loss at JV. So that just speaks to the consistency and how well this program is built by Eric Thornton. I want to read you a stat from John Harrell this morning and what you surmise out of it. The average margin in this year's girls tournament was 20 points, the largest in the tournament's 51-year history. The losing team scoring average was 33 points, the lowest ever. 69 blowouts of 35 points or more, as 12 teams were held to single digits. The total amount of points in a game was the lowest since 1976, the first year of the tournament. What do you make out of that? It just feels like there's low scoring, but there's also a lot of blowouts. What do you make of that?
Oh, I think two things. I think that in girls basketball right now, we don't have the parity maybe that we have in the boys' side, but the high end play is really, really good. And so it's not just that the parity's not there, but the teams like the Norwell, the Center Grove, but even when we look at this area, Norwell, Bellmont, Fremont, East Side, Snyder, Homestead, Warsaw, those types of teams are playing such good basketball. And I personally think that the level of defensive identity on the girls' side has risen so much. When as far as in our area, when girls basketball was really starting to reach kind of a peak time, and I look back to like when Homestead with Chris McLaughlin won the state title, was kind of when Northeast Indiana was starting to ascend. It was offensive oriented a lot, and not to say those teams couldn't play defense, but now, especially you look at a Norwell team that gets 15 to 20 steals a game and things like that. The defensive identity and defensive ability of these girls has risen so much. So, when the high end before could score in the 60s, everybody else could still score in the 50s. Now the defensive identity of those teams who are scoring a lot is so much better. I think that's why we see the gap more than anything.
Mm-hmm. So in addition to these teams that we're talking about today, you talked about the parity. So let's talk about some teams that didn't necessarily advance, super far in the tournament because they had to run into a Norwell or a Fremont or a Bellmont. So out of these teams, out of the other teams in the area, who's a team that we should watch out for next year that isn't being talked about? Let's take an early look at next season. Who's on Dan's list to watch for on the girls' side in the area?
Well, I think a team that returns a lot that we need to watch is obviously Snyder. Janaea Cooper has been fantastic for them. Missed some time this year, injured, but when she came back, no. So
okay.
When she comes back, I think Snyder has a chance to make a real big push. But then there's just programs that graduate a lot, but we know they're going to be good. And you look at a Homestead, you look at a Warsaw. I think that Eastside has quite a bit back. I think that Eastside is going to be good. And I look at what Justin Jordan's doing at Whitco. Had them ranked number 1 in the state when they got knocked out this year. It was kind of a surprise. I think that Whitco loses a little bit, but has a lot back. And he's another guy who's – we talk about building programs that were basically from the foundation. I think Whitco, those teams, all that I named, I think we watch. I think that Whitco has a chance to make another run in 2A next year.
What's it going to take for the boys' side to have this much, talent? Because it just like I think I saw a tweet from the Outside the Huddle account that we've had 3 girls teams make it to the state finals. That's the same amount that the boys have had on the boys side in the last 3 years. We haven't had a team, or a consistent number of teams or multiple teams even make it to semi-state. What's it going to take, or what's the issue on the boys side that, we can't have, consistency going down to Indianapolis?
Oh, I think that the struggle on the boys' side is the parity. I think that we still have really good basketball, but there aren't players or teams that have really been able to elevate themselves to the next level. But the skill's still there, the talent's still there. I just think that the parity in the area is pretty even keel. So I think as we see more of these teams venture out to play tougher schools, I think that's a conversation even during high school football, the DC, that you've had, is you got to play these bigger schools to get the experience. When you're playing in Northeast Indiana and the parity's there and teams are on an even playing field, you don't get some of the higher end experience that you need versus going down and playing in Indianapolis, going up and playing in, the region a little bit with some of those teams. So I think that will help a lot too. But, same with like individual teams. You look at a lot of the parities, the same teams are good. Some of the top boys teams in the area are really good, but 1, 2, and 3 are just as good as each other versus, when Fletcher Lawyer was better than almost everybody on his team, except when Luke Goody was there. Luke Goody was better than everybody on his team. Caleb First was better than everybody on his team. Connor Essegian was better. And so we haven't had superstar players. We have some real high-end players. Obviously, Mac Welker immediately comes to mind in that. But we had a real strong run of really, really good players, and that's when we saw boys teams making it to the state finals and winning the state finals. Again, no knock on anybody because we got some high-level talent. Mac Welker, Austin Schlabach at Westview, Caden Grau at Westview, all really good top-level players. But we don't have guys like we had for a while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I had a fun question to kind of end things because I imagine we're going to talk some college hoops today, Bryce. Who's the best team in college basketball, Dan? And tell me why it's not Duke.
The best team in college basketball is Duke. And there is no other answer. I really like what Michigan's doing. I think they're a really fun team to watch. I loved the Duke-Michigan game. I love UConn. I love how they play. Obviously, they're not at the tippy top right now. Arizona's look good, but I'm sorry, DC. It's Duke, and until somebody proves otherwise, it's Duke.
Yeah, DC, you knew that was coming. I mean, Dan is a Duke guy. For those that don't know, I mean, he was going to go Duke no matter what.
just to remind Dan, there's one undefeated team in college basketball, so better than Duke.
They're not better than Duke. They're not better than Duke.
Unbeaten, unscathed.
Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll get a chance to see. But and kudos to Miami. I mean, a stellar year going undefeated is not easy.
They're trying to talk them out of the tournament. Like, there's literally people trying to say that they don't deserve a spot in the tournament.
I don't care if they don't win the conference tournament. They should be in the tournament. They should be, at the very worst, a 5 seed if they don't win the conference tournament. I mean, going undefeated in the regular season is hard. I don't care what conference you're in. I don't care the level of opponent. It's a stellar thing that Miami's been able to do. But they're not better than Duke.
I thought that's
Yeah, I agree with that. They're not better than Duke. They've had a really good year. And DC, stop listening to Bruce Pearl. All right, he's a moron who let his son take over his program, and that program is not very good. They're around 500 right now. Yeah,
terrible.
Dan, you're always welcome here on the show, and thank you so much for joining us once again on the Sideline Sports Show. And good luck to your basketball team as the postseason starts next week. And we'll hope to have you on the show once again sometime soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Love being on, guys.